Shalom, all praises to the Most High, Anoka said. Praise be to the earthly mother, the Pachamama, and all of her earthly angels, the Erkadeshoi. Praise be to the Holy Spirit, the K'iche, in the name of his only begotten Son, Motsah the Lamb, unification to the nation. Alright, so this is going to be probably the finale of this series. I can go into so much more information. It took me so long because I really wanted to make PDFs of these books, and I made, a good amount, but there are still books that I still haven't even gotten into. There's just a lot, right? It's a lot of information, but everything's in my library. I leave you to do the rest. This was a great series. I love doing this series, but it's time to wrap it up, man. So I want to start off with some perspective building, because how I do on my channel. I like to build perspective. I like to kill doctrine, and let's see how these people are doing, because people might say, oh, they are this people because of how they look, when it's an assumption on how they're supposed to look in the first place. Let's give this music just a little pause and let's play this video.
You hear that immigrant children are dying at the border. You hear that Central Americans are dying at the border, but you don't hear that these are indigenous children dying at the border.
At the U.S. southern border, people from Guatemala make up the largest portion of unaccompanied minors and family units apprehended. At least 6 known children have died in U.S. immigration custody. 5 of those children are indigenous Mayas from Guatemala. And if we include adults, 6 Guatemalan Mayas total have died at the U.S. border. The news reports them as Guatemalans, but their specific Maya nations get buried in the coverage. Mam, K'iche, Chu, Chorti, Achi. We spoke to Maya immigrants in the U.S. about the deaths of these young people at the border.
In Komolveto Tenam Ishil.
I'm from the Maya Mam Nation.
Some of them asked us to protect their identity for fear of persecution of their families in Guatemala.
Las muertes de estos niños en las fronteras, lo único que nos está haciendo es visibilizando.
In Guatemala, official statistics say the indigenous population is around 40%, but some think it could be as high as 60%. Despite being a large portion of the population,
and we already know that they always lie about the populations because they want to keep the people at a minimum. We've been at 13%. The so-called black people among the Israelites, we've been at 13% for how long? It's just ridiculous. I'm surprised they even list the indigenous population as high as 40%. I'm honestly surprised at that.
Indigenous peoples in Guatemala face high levels of inequality, land disputes, and displacement.
Nosotros somos obligados a ir, a partir y a dejar lo que es nuestro, nuestra identidad, nuestro idioma. Somos una nación resistente aún.
In May 2018, 20-year-old Claudia Patricia Gomez was shot in the head by Border Patrol agents.
As I started hearing the news, I realized that she was from San Juan Ostuncalco, which is the village right next to where I was born, and that she was actually from my nation.
Then, reports of Maya children dying.
By the way, that woman speaking, I don't know, she's kind of making me upset looking at her because she looks so similar to my high school Spanish teacher. And excuse my language, she was a bitch, bro. Oh my goodness. That was a hard ass, She always got me in trouble, man, and I tried so hard. Oh man, shout out to you, Miss Alvarez. I'm just joking. You weren't that bad, but you definitely were acting like it was college or something, like it was high school. Like, you gotta chill, bro.
in U.S. custody started rolling in.
A little girl, Jacqueline, had died in custody. And then just 2 weeks later, we heard the news again, and Felipe died on Christmas Eve. Later, we had Juan. And then we heard that a toddler had died, 2.5 years old. His name was Wilmer. And not even 2 weeks later, another boy, a 16-year-old, his name was Carlos.
They died of things like bacterial infections, influenza, and pneumonia following ICE custody.
Son niños inocentes que vienen a ofrecer su vida como un sacrificio, demostrando y gritando el sufrimiento que pasa en nuestra comunidad.
One of the main challenges that indigenous migrants and refugees face at the border is the language barrier, both with English and Spanish. Aside from Spanish, there are 22 officially recognized indigenous languages in Guatemala.
Muchas veces no hablamos el idioma español y nos encontramos con esa barrera al entrar a este país. Desconocemos lo que es el idioma inglés.
We've asked for interpreters in their languages because you cannot have access to justice if you can't express yourself. And if they can't express themselves in their language, then they can't tell the complete story of what happened.
Mam, K'iche, and Canjobal, Maya languages indigenous to Guatemala, are in the top 25 most common languages spoken in U.S. immigration court today. Despite this, there's often a shortage of interpreters of indigenous languages, and the language barrier can be deadly. Detained immigrants who speak an indigenous language are less likely to receive medical care. 7-year-old Jacqueline Cal's father, Neri Gilberto Calcus, signed a form stating that she was in good health. The form was in English. Cal's first language was Maya K'iche. Jacqueline Cal died of a bacterial infection. Indigenous Guatemalans also face high malnutrition rates. Malnutrition in Guatemala is 47%, with up to 70% in some indigenous areas.
What? Bro, and these are estimations, bro. That's insane. That is very sad. That's very sad, bro. That's very sad.
The Alta Verapaz province, where Jacqueline Cal was from, has a 59% chronic malnutrition rate among children.
Todas las tierras de mis ancestros han sido expropiadas por los grandes empresarios, terratenientes que han ocupado las sagradas tierras.
Palm oil plantations have been encroaching on indigenous land in rural Guatemala.
So you look at the case, for instance, of Jacqueline Cal. The area that she came from is today heavily controlled by transnational corporations, by palm oil plantations.
In 2018, 18 land defenders were murdered in Guatemala.
Muchos de nuestros hermanos están también siendo perseguidos dentro del territorio por las grandes empresas extractivas que están llegando como una forma de monopolizar todos los recursos existentes.
People from Guatemala started coming to the U.S. in big numbers fleeing war.
En 1980 explotó más la guerra en mi país.
There was a mass exodus because of genocide that was occurring in our lands and territories.
Bro, stuff like this is really what pisses me off about the white people who call them, oh, they're immigrants, they're invaders, get off of our country. I really feel, I really want someone to chop your head off. Because how horrible of a person do you have to be to come to a place that you don't belong and then tell other people that they don't belong here? Talk about your tax money and this and that when most of your people are the ones who are leeching all of the tax money because more of them are on welfare. But you see these people, you see how they look, and you see a threat. That's really what it's about. And I'm hoping for the day that I get to see these people tell your ass, get out my country. It's such a selfish thing, man. That's why it irked me so much when Dabu 7 said that.
Guatemala experienced a 36-year civil war between 1960 and 1996.
No es porque nosotros quisimos venir a este país, sino que estamos buscando vida porque somos refugiados, no somos inmigrantes, porque nunca pensé salir de mi madre tierra.
The United States under the Reagan administration poured hundreds of millions of dollars into the Guatemalan military. The The Guatemalan military was responsible for 93% of human rights abuses during the war.
More than 200,000 of our people were killed or disappeared, and over 1.5 million were forcibly displaced. Most of us, were Maya people.
In present-day Guatemala, indigenous people are
The Father sees it all.
leading the charge to prosecute war criminals from that era. Efraín Ríos Montt, dictator of Guatemala from 1982 to 1983, was convicted of genocide and crimes against humanity in 2013. Ríos Montt was charged for the massacre of 1,771 Maya Ixil people. However, his conviction was later overturned and he died at age 91. The oppression of Maya peoples in Guatemala didn't start with the Civil War.
El genocidio empezó desde la llegada de los españoles.
Tenemos 500 años de resistir en nuestro territorio por todas las injusticias. Los pueblos mayas somos pueblos que hemos existido y que hemos resistido ante diferentes tipos de invasiones.
Es una larga noche que hemos tenido, es un largo caminar que tenemos de ser exiliados en nuestra propia tierra, de ser obligados a no hablar nuestro idioma, de ser obligados a no usar nuestro traje que nos identifica.
There's at least one point.
Did you see that lady, by the way? Listen, when I tell you guys that a lot of so-called, African Americans have a lot of this Guatemalan, Central American ancestry, I do mean that. A lot of people from the Caribbean have that ancestry. They think that they're quote unquote black until you look at who their forefathers are. You don't know who they are. You don't know. They can be from this Israelite tribe that look nothing like how they look today. That woman's face, I see that face all over the Caribbean and just around New York. I see that face. It's the same people. Various phenotypes, different hair textures, skin colors a little bit different, but it's the same thing. It's the same. It looks the same. And unlike the people of Mexico, the Guatemalans are relatively homogenous. They're not nearly as mixed up as the people of Mexico. I do believe that many of the people of Mexico are our brethren. But Mexico is a very mixed up place because, well, we're going to get into it, but those lands have been constantly overturned and people have came and overturned them and again came, and so it's a big mix of people.
0.3 million people of Guatemalan origin in the United States. However, it's unclear how many of those people are indigenous.
We're inaccurately mislabeled as Latino or Hispanic or Latinx, but it's also caused a process of erasing our existence, erasing our identity.
Though made invisible, Mayas are part.
I'm sorry to keep pausing it, but this is exactly what I've been trying to tell people. Just because other people think that they're from Spain or they're Hispanic, that doesn't mean that they are. Just because black people think they're from Africa, most of them here, that doesn't mean that they are. That's just them not knowing. It's that simple. A lot of people are just ignorant. A lot of us are ignorant. So you have to have compassion on people. You have to have patience with people. But my patience starts to run thin when you start to insult people. That's when I'm like, okay, I'm not going to have patience with you if you start to insult people. If you don't know your identity and you go by another, okay, that's cool. We've all been there. But when you start to insult people, call people Mongoloids or call people Canaanites, nah, we got a problem then.
Part of the fabric of U.S. immigrant communities.
Es un reto empezar de nuevo. Los mayas sí existimos aquí.
What's happening to Mayas at the U.S. southern border is backed by centuries of oppression.
The root drivers of forced migration for many of us has been because of our indigenous identity, because of the large-scale persecution we have lived.
The International Mayan League has made demands of the U.S. government. Those include thorough and transparent investigations into the deaths on the border and a dialogue with indigenous leaders on developing humane immigration policies.
Los gobiernos no son nuestros gobiernos, son gobiernos de los ricos, de grandes empresarios, terratenientes, pero no hemos tenido nosotros una representación dentro de los gobiernos sea aquí en Estados Unidos, sea en otro país, no hemos tenido un reconocimiento.
And that's the same really everywhere. Even when, why don't you Google quote unquote African Americans? They'll show you a bunch of people that don't really look like us. They look weird. They don't look like Indians. They don't look like quote unquote black Indians. They kind of look like Hamites. You know, they kind of look like I don't know. They just don't look like they don't seem the same. They don't seem the same. Maybe I'm tripping. I don't know, but I see them every day. They don't look like the Google images. And just the people you just saw here, do they look like the people? If you type in Guatemalans, you won't see these type of people. You'll see a bunch of weird looking people. Right? Now let's get into, you know, the video. Whoops, let me turn this down. So what I got planned for this video is we're going to touch on the connections with the Book of Mormon and the K'iche Mayans, the people of the Yucatan Peninsula, as well as the people of Guatemala. Some of the connections of the early Mexicans with the tribe of Judah. I guess the birth or the coming of the Jaredites or the Olmec. Who were the Olmec? And I don't think I said it in the Olmec part, but I'll say it now. The Olmec were a mixture of the Canaanites and the Shemites who came here from the Tower of Babel. They came from Lud, who's the son of Shem. Two people came here. Well, two groups of people. Two patriarchs. You had Aki, and his name is Muran Kumer, and you also have Jared. Jared went to Central America. Aki left Central America because of how wicked his brother and his posterity were already being, so they fled to North America, and then they dwelt around the Great Lakes area with the Shawnee people and mixed in with them. Shawnee people, aka the Shairi people or the Oma people. But anyway, let's start here. What is Anasazi? Anasazi. I should have read that before. A Fremont, a Pueblo. What is the Iberian culture, Clovis people, Solturian people, Adena culture, or Hopewell? All of these are Canaanite cultures. All of them. Now, of course, we displaced the Canaanites and we overtook them, but they're still being called, the same culture. But you guys have to remember, we took over the Canaanites. We dwelt in their buildings. We did it all over the Americas. We took some of the things that they were doing and made it better. That's just what we did. But we were not the originators. Now let's move down. The most ancient of this land is called the Anasazi, and is portrayed as an example of the following image, which is in a small way true, but to me is just the typical Native American image. These are not how they looked, but they uprooted them, possibly mixed in with them, but these are not the original ones. The original ones were what? The following images would be more accurate to represent the Anasazi, aside from dress, which would have been lighter due to a warmer climate. They were a very large people with an average height of 9 feet. Now, what did we see in the bones that they found here? That these were white giants with red or blonde hair. What did we just go over in the last video about the curse of Canaan? That hair, red or blonde hair, light hair like that, that comes from leprosy, bro. That's leprosy. Blonde hair is leprosy. Yellow hair is leprosy. That's albinism. That's leprosy. Now look, modern day Altai Mongolian man. These were very tall. These Mongolians were incredibly tall. The ones, like the ancient ones. Why is that? Because some of Aki's people, they stayed in Asia. They were known, and their leader was known as Ziklag, right? And funny enough, that's literally one of the towns of Judah. So some of Judah's lands are somewhere in the east, in Asia, on the coastline of Asia. Now, I can only think of one thing that really has a lot of connections with Peru and somewhere in Asia, and that's Japan. Japan has a ton of connections with Peru, and I'm thinking, could that have been Ziklag? Just my theory. The Alta Mongolian, the closest living relative of the first Americas. So that haplogroup Q is not only, our haplogroup, but it also belongs to the Jaredites or Aki. It's not all set in stone, right? But yes, the Jaredites were what you would call, black giant Asians, because the Jaredites got invaded by the Canaanites, and they're pretty much conflating the two. They're not the same thing. But it seemed like the Jaredites were more quote unquote Negro looking, and the Canaanites were more Asiatic, Caucasian looking. According to the Aztec record in the Book of Mormon, these people arrived on this continent about 2400 BC, being the most ancient of Americans, as there is no original. All people on this land migrated here from another continent, which is actually true, believe it or not. The Mormons will call them Jaredites. They are the people responsible for the DNA haplogroups found abundant in South America, Central and Northwest America, with the Inuit and Elu of Alaska and Canadian tribes or related being the most pure of the original bloodline. Dang, I should have looked up this article. But I'll leave it in the script. I'll leave it in the comment section. And it's proving to you that the real, the very first people who got here, they dwelt in the Great Lakes region in Canada. The Shawnee, the Shairi, the Arphaxad, where Abraham came out of. Now, these people aren't necessarily related to Abraham, but when you intermix with people so much, your haplogroup is going to be the same. Your DNA is going to be the same, especially if you come from the same forefather of Shem. The Pueblo culture is named by the Spanish meaning town people, those who build houses, and one of the many images which is used to depict these people may as well be the same photos used to identify or instill in your mind, once again, the typical Native American Indian. Now, in later times, meaning in the times of the Spaniard, this would not be too far from reality, as the people who may have been occupying the many towns or cities were now a mixed people and very well may have looked like those in the following image. Yeah, natives are very mixed up, bro. We are mixed up as well. Don't get it twisted. We're all mixed up. Almost none of us look like how we originally looked. If honestly, if you're going to ask me what I think the original look was, it would probably be the northern part of South America and some parts of the Caribbean. That's what it seems like, because so-called African Americans, a lot of them are mixed in with the black Europeans. Depending on the time frame one is referring to, the Pueblo people may be one of a few cultures who came to this land, but most likely a mixture of them. The first in which likely made up what is considered as the Pueblo is of Jewish descent or Hebrew, and they arrived in several groups at later place here in America. Mormons call them Nephites or Lamanites, and that's where I have to stop you, bro, because no. Not quite, bro. Not quite. I don't think that they are the Nephites or the Lamanites. Or actually, maybe. Let me not say that. But I'm not going to go over them. I'll say that because, the Mayas, they didn't only stay in Guatemala. The late classical period or the Neo-Mayans, they did not only stay in the Yucatan Peninsula or in Guatemala, they spread around. The weaponry, now listen to this, the weaponry to some degree was done by flint knapping, but the majority of their copper and bronze weapon at the time they destroyed themselves as a people in brutal wars, has long since decayed and returned to Mother Earth. Keep in mind, these battles, according to the Book of Mormon and the Aztec record, occurred near 600 BC. Now, I find it interesting. Didn't King David, or I think it was Solomon, it was one of the two, but they needed the copper to build the temple, right? The copper mines in Mesoamerica and Mexico. Hiram, king of Tyre, right? Put it together. Let me see if there's anything else I wanted to read. I don't want to read your hijack pictures. Now listen to this. This was crazy. Another group of people who has migrated to this land in the past and likely arrived here in the West prior to the previous mentioned Pueblo people are those whom we will call Roman Jewish colonies, which is one of history's best kept secrets. I went over this, bro. I didn't say the fact that the Romans colonized Mexico before the Aztecs did, which he's about to say. But yeah, the Romans, they had control of northern Mexico for a time. They found Nero's bust here for a reason. These people likely mixed with the earlier mentioned Pueblo people, but the Roman Jewish people arrived here in the West about 100 BC and thrived for near to 400 years before they were defeated by the enemy known later as the Toltec, or the tribe of Issachar. Any people who even appear to look like these Pueblo people, or the mixture of which are of the same DNA, were for the most part vanquished, exterminated, or assimilated. This is a constant theme. The people are mostly killed, pushed out, and some of which assimilate. So their look is going to keep changing, right? These people returned again to this continent in 700 AD and thrived until overthrown by the Toltec and a mixture of the previous and remnant of their own near 900 AD. These people and the mixture of the former as well as those of the most ancient remnant of the Anasazi eventually became part of the Aztec. I told you guys, the Aztec were a multi-ethnic people. The majority of them were Israelites, but they're going to keep having remnants of other people with them. It gets very confusing in these days due to all those who came to this land mixed together, migrated together, with others going in different directions and some of the original even migrating back to the old world. See, that's the 10 tribes, bro. The 10 tribes. 10 tribes, bro. The following images might be a more accurate rendition of this later group of Pueblo people than those which have been used in the past. These are the Pueblo people. Are you crazy? Actually, if he's talking about the very first people, then yeah, he's actually not that crazy. I don't know if I wanted to read anymore. Yeah, that was about it for that. So now we're in... Let me see, I want to go here. No, I don't want to touch on the K'iche quite yet. Let's keep flowing with this this first American stuff, right? People of the first people of the Americas. Now, I'm just going to say IX because I don't know how to say this, and I'm not even going to attempt to. But I'm going to read some of his works down here, because he has the other column right here, and he is equating it to the Book of Mormon, and that's cool, but that's not really the point. Let's read. Concerning all the things that have happened in New Spain or Mexico, and many things that the Toltecas understood and knew, from the creation of the world to its destruction, and the coming of the third Chichimeca settlers to the coming of the Spaniards, taken from the original history of this New Spain. Now, I truly do not know what Chichimeca really entails. It might not only be talking about a literal seed line of people. I don't know what it means, but I do know that it is in reference to Canaan, because the Chichimecas were known as giants, right? We're gonna get into it. They're gonna get into it. So, IX sometimes uses the name Toltecas in referring generally to all the highly cultured colonizers of ancient Middle America. As we study the works of IX, we find that he gives an account of 3 separate groups of people who came from across the ocean to colonize America. The first of these, he claims, migrated to the New World from the very high tower. Now that sounds like the Jaredites. That definitely sounds like them. At the time of the confusion of tongues, he calls this group by several different names. First, he calls them the Toltecas, and he distinguishes them from the latter Toltecas by calling them the Ancient Ones. He also refers to them as the Giants. So I don't think that they originally were giants. I think they mixed in with the giants, or there's some sort of witchcraft that they've come up with to make themselves giants. That's a possibility as well. I don't really know, but I do know that Canaan was in these lands, because Canaan came before the tower was even made. Because Canaan is not Ham's son. Canaan is old. You know, Canaan was here from the get-go. He wanted Shem's lands, right? Later in this book, he speaks of another group of advanced people who came to Middle America by sea. These he also calls Toltecas. These people are referred to in the ancient Guatemalan histories as the early Nahuas or Nahulis. IX speaks of a third group of people who came across the ocean to settle America. These he calls Olmecs. The spelling that is usually given for the name is Olmecs. The Book of Mormon, like the works of IX, also gives an account of 3 groups of people who settled in ancient America. The first settlers that the Book of Mormon speaks of are called the Jaredites. They, like IX's first settlers, came from the Great Tower of Babel at the time of the confusion of tongues. This civilization flourished in America for more than 2,000 years. These people seem to be the earliest Toltecas, the ancient ones, the giants of IX's history. The Book of Mormon, like IX, tells of the second group of cultured people who settled in ancient America. They left the Near East, okay, whatever, right? Well, the real Near East, the real Middle East, the real Jerusalem. Several years later, after enduring great hardships, they were led by a prophet named Lehi and his son Nephi. The people took upon themselves the name Nephites. Their principal homeland was bountiful Zarahemla, bountiful plant land. They seemed to be the second Toltecas, the artisans of IX's history. A number of 16th century writers spoke of a group of early settlers of America whom they called the early Nahuas or Nahulis. Note the close resemblance of the names Nahuas with that of Nephites. I don't know. It seems to be those names. Okay, let's just move down. The Book of Mormon, like IX, tells of a third group of artisans who migrated to ancient America. This group likewise came from the Near East, right? Because he said the Near East, right? The most prominent member of this group was Mulek, a son, probably in his infancy, for he is not mentioned in the Old Testament story of King Zedekiah of Jerusalem. Since Mulek was of the royal family, these people called themselves Mulekites. About 200 BC, the Mulekites and the Nephites merged together. Now that's very important. They merged together as one in the central region of the hemisphere. From that time forward, the combined people were known as Nephites. So it's a mixture of the tribe of Joseph and the tribe of Judah, the royal tribe of Judah. In some of the 16th century accounts, there are references to a merger of two groups of people in ancient America. It seems possible that these writers are referring to the same merger described in the Nephites records. The Mulekites of the Book of Mormon may be identical with the people that IX calls Olmecs. Observe the similarity in the names Mulek and Olmec. That's interesting, but I don't know. Might be a reach. According to IX, the earliest Toltecas, elsewhere referred to him as the ancient ones or giants, had a knowledge of the creation of the world and the great flood. So the earliest Toltecas, or the earliest Shemites, right? The earliest Toltecas probably mixed in with the Chichimecas, possibly. Concerning the creation of the world and the origin of the Indians, only God is the one who knows all things. But what has been able to be known easily, according to the Toltecas, is what follows. The Toltecas understood and knew of the creation of the world and how Loke Nahuake created it, and the other things that are in it, such as planets, mountains, animals, etc. And in the same manner, they knew how God created a man and a woman from whom men descended and multiplied. And concerning this, they add many fables in that order to avoid prolixity, I don't know what that is, are not set here, and it is not to be wondered at, for the other nations of the world have done the same thing. The quotation from the Book of Mormon clearly shows that the Jaredites, the earliest New World colonists from Bible lands, having come from the Tower of Babel, or Bible lands according to what you know, because the Canaanites were the first people here, the white gods, right? Let me see. And they said that the world was created in the year of Tekpalt, so I'm not going to read these names, and this epoch up to the deluge. They called this word, which means age of the son of water, because the world was destroyed by the deluge, and it is found in the Tolteca histories that this age and first world, as they called it, lasted 1,716 years, that men were destroyed by very great storms and lightnings from heaven, and the whole world without a thing remaining. And the highest mountain means this. You really think I'm gonna read this? Which are 15 cubits, were covered with water, and they add likewise other fables. Let me see. The Book of Mormon accounts agrees in detail with the works of IX and the report of a universal flood or deluge, and also in reference made to the fact that few of the people were saved from the destruction in a closed ark or Ark of Noah. Okay, let's see what else we can get out of this. Let me see. Alright, let's go here. Wait. Actually, let's start here. When things were at their best, their languages were changed, and not understanding each other, they went to differing parts of the world, and the Toltecas, who were as many as 7 companions and their wives, who understood that their language among themselves, came to these parts, having first crossed large lands and seas, having what is that? Hiding? I don't know what that word is. Can't even tell. In caves and undergoing great hardships until they came to this land, which they found good and fertile for their habitation. It is the common and general opinion of all the natives of all this Chichimeca land, which is now called New Spain, besides appearing in the demonstration of their pictures that their ancestors came from occidental parts, and all of them are now called Toltecas, Acohuas, Mexicanos, and other nations that are in this land say that they are of the lineage of the Chichimecas and are proud of it. And the reason is, according as it appears in their histories, that the first king that they had was called Chichimecalt, who was the one who brought them to this new world where they settled. Bro, that sounds just like what it says in Aki, that they established a king, and because, like, you know, Aki and his people, they were just like, oh hell no, we out, and they dipped. But yeah, they literally did that. I think we went over that, and if not, I don't remember which part. But if you guys want to know, you can check out, I believe it is in, I'll look for the scripture, I'll leave it in the comment section. Who, as can be inferred, came from the great Tartary, and they were those of the division of Babylon, as it is declared more at length in the history that it is written. See, they came from Tartary, they came from Asia, as it seems, because that's where Tartary is. Let me see if this is too loud. No, it's good. Let me see. Alright, this is interesting. True origin of the Indians, their departure from Chaldea, their immigration to the southern parts, their crossing the ocean, and the defeat which followed until their arrival in Mexico, beginning of their empire, foundation and destruction of their ancient and first court, discovered recently and known by the name city of Palenque. Wow. That sounds like the Jaredites to me, bro. Let me see if there's anything I really wanted to read. According to the Book of Mormon, the first settlers of the territory northward from the narrow neck of the land were the people of Jared, who came in 8 boats. They would seem to correspond closely to the giants or ancient ones of IX's account. It is likely that the ancient ones, and the Olmecs, the latter probably identical with the Mulekites of the Book of Mormon, both arrived in the Panuco area of the Gulf of Mexico. You don't know that, but alright. And the Isthmus of Tehutepec. The Nephite history expressly declares that the last of the Jaredites came in contact with the Mulekites. This encounter is the subject of chapter 12 herein. Let me see. In view of the sacred significance of the number 7, it is quite possible that during the many centuries that intervened between the arrival of the Ancient One, stretching from the early Tower of Babel period down to the time of Sahagun in the 16th century AD, the original 8 barges could easily have been reduced to 7. Okay, I didn't need to read that. Okay, I think that's about it. But they're saying that some people came this way, some people came this way, right? Do we really know? Not really, but I do believe that the Nephites did come probably like here in this area. Let's go down. Now, we're in Christ in Ancient America. Now, this book loves touching on the white bearded god stuff, man. Like, it's crazy. I'm gonna show you the table of contents real quick. Like, these people are some hijack centrals. Look. Check this out, bro. Quetzalcoatl, the white and bearded god. That's not what it said. It said white bearded god, not white and bearded. Hijacks, bro. Hijacks. This is what it was talking about. A white beard. Not talking about him being white and bearded. First of all, no one refers to anyone as white. Literally their skin color. That is a curse. Like, what the hell? Come on now. The only one who had that and wasn't cursed was Noah. Everyone else has been, they've had leprosy. I don't know what these hijack masters are all about, bro. It's pathetic. But anyway, now we're gonna get into the K'iche Maya. Indians' knowledge of the Godhead received from Quetzalcoatl. The early Spanish missionaries who labored in Middle America were greatly surprised to find that the Indians had an extensive knowledge of the Godhead or Holy Trinity. The natives made the claim that their knowledge had been given to them originally by Quetzalcoatl, which would be in harmony with the claims made by the Book of Mormon that Jesus Christ appeared to the inhabitants of ancient America and taught them his gospel in its fullness. Relying on the famous Catholic missionary Padre Sahagun for his information, Dr. D. Rue wrote, the natives of Campeche assured... I don't know, someone just texted me, sorry. The natives of Campeche assured the Spanish missionaries that their religious teacher, Quetzalcoatl, had given them images to explain his doctrine, and in particular the triangle stone, as an illusion of the blessed Trinity, with which the mystery they were well acquainted, says Sahagun, and in whose name they were baptized. See, they even practiced baptism. That's in another book that I'm going to share, but I couldn't find the reference. But I read it, and I can't find where it was. But I know it's in the book. Hubert Howie Bancroft informs us that the K'iche Mayan Indians in Guatemala also held in their traditions a belief in a Godhead composed of three divine personages. The names by which they were known were Tohil, Awalix, and Gukumats. Bishop Bartholomew de las Casas, a famous Spanish Catholic priest who did extensive missionary work among the Indians of Chiapas, Mexico, and who recorded their traditions, reported that Francis Hernandez, a priest laboring under his direction, wrote him a letter in which he claimed that the Indians had a tradition of a Godhead composed of three members, similar to the Holy Trinity worshipped by the Christians. The writer has found no statement among the Indian traditions which more clearly expresses this doctrine than the following, which Bishop de las Casas attributed to Hernandez. I found a good secular priest, of a mature age and honorable, who knew the language of the Indians, having lived among them several years, because I was obliged to travel on to the chief town of my diocese. I appointed him my vicar, asking him and giving him charge to visit the tribes of the inland, and to preach to them in the manner that I gave him. The same priest, after some months, or even a year, as I think, wrote to me that he had met with the chief from whom he had made inquiries in regard to his ancient belief in religion, which they were used to follow in that country. It's weird. Which they were used. I don't know. It's weird. The Indian answered him that they knew and believed in God who dwells in the heavens, and that God is Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. Wow, see? The Father's name was Icona, and he had created man and all things. The Son had for his name Bakal, and he was born from a maiden always virgin called Gypies that lives in the heavens with God. The Holy Ghost they called Ikuak. They say that Icona means the great father of Bakab, who is the sun. When the Indians asked the meaning of Bakab or Bakabab, he said that it meant son of the great father, and that the name of Ekuak signified merchant, and in fact the Holy Ghost brought good merchandises to earth, since it satiated the world, that is, the people of the world, with his, I'm not gonna say her, but with its abundant divine gifts and graces. Okay. Hernandez also informed Bishop de las Casas that he had received the foregoing tradition from one of the old chiefs who claimed that the tradition had come to him from his ancient ancestors. So again, the Mayans were everywhere, bro. They weren't just in one place. Now let's read this. Now this is Origins of the American Indian. Let me see. I just wanted to draw a little connection to Issachar real quick. This writer did not find any work by Ruiz Berharan acceptable to the subject. Solorzano merely cataloged the theory, but did not openly reject it. He did implicitly reject it, however, by endorsing a Far Eastern non-Jewish origin. Kalancha, with characteristic candor, referred to the Issachar story as silly because it would fit not only the Indian but also Christians under Muslim control and Negroes in Europe. Of course, bro. Because he's denying who the Israelites are on a worldwide scale. So he's saying if you accept these people as the tribe of Issachar, then you have to accept these Negroes in Europe and these Christians, quote unquote Christians, and under Muslim control, you mean the Saracens? Is that what you're talking about? Okay. Zamora similarly dismissed the idea because the Indians had lived without masters for many generations before the Spanish conquest. It should be noted, in fairness to Simon, that neither Kalancha nor Zamora considered all aspects of Simon's thesis. They concentrated their attention on the condition of servitude part of Simon's argument. The Issachar variant was only accepted by Antonio Vasquez de Espinosa in his Comendio. Generally, Vasquez' argument concerning the possible ways the first settlers could have come to America paralleled Acosta's, but his conclusion owes nothing to Acosta. I say that the first settlers of the Indies descended from La Mayor Gente, I don't know where that is, then existing in the world, that is, from the 10 tribes of Israel, when King Salmanazar exiled them to uninhabited lands, and particularly from the tribe of Issachar. Without quoting any source other than the Bible and the apocryphal Esdras, Vasquez developed the Issachar theory precisely as did Simon. And you're gonna see something. He developed the theory. Let's see where they really got it from though. Vasquez used the lost tribe theory to buttress weird, bro. Weird English. His Issachar theory, with a degree of confusion resulting. Vasquez used the Ezra story of the migration of the 10 lost tribes to show how the descendants of Issachar, who were among the exiles, could have got to America, an event he dated at Yet Vasquez continued with a discussion of the evidence of an Ophirian origin. They're always trying to push that Ophir stuff, bro. Because they're just like, well, what could this place be other than Ophir? They knew Ophir was in the Philippines, by the way. So they was like, oh, well, this place has way more gold than what we thought was Ophir, so this must be the real Ophir. And no, you guys found the Ophir. This is Israel that you found. He did not explain the connection of Issachar with the Ophirites and seemed to be offering an alternative to the Issachar origin. Apparently, he was not committed to Issachar, but really thought it was most probable. Let's skip down. The only other writer this author found who accepted the Issachar story variation of the 10 lost tribes theory was Balthasar de Medina, in his book. Although Medina thought the South Americans and Yucatans were descendants of the Gentile Ectan. The Mexicans are originally of the 10 tribes captured by Salmanazar and of the family of Issachar, whom the Indians recognize as their special ancestor. See, the Indians told your ass. They told you. They told you, bro. They told them. They're like, bro, we're not from Yoktan or Joktan. We're from Issachar. Like, what y'all talking about? Anyway, let's get back on track with this Yucatan K'iche Maya drop. Only once did Anguilla point out contact with non-Americans with Indians, which might have left a permanent population. In discussing Balboa's encounter with some Negroes on the Atlantic coast of Panama, he attributed to Balboa the postulate that an Ethiopian raiding party was shipwrecked in Panama, thus accounting for the Negroes now there. Okay, whatever. Peter Martry also reported the practice of circumcision in Yucatan, which the Indians attributed to a former visitor. He did not, however, say he thought this might indicate a Jewish origin for the Yucatan Indians. Alright, let's keep going. Let's go down a bit. It's 23. Alright, where I want to start. Okay. He referred to some anonymous doctor, probably misunderstanding of Anguilla, who connected the practice of circumcision and the practice of circumcision and the presence of a few words resembling Hebrew in Yucatan to postulate a Judaic origin for the Yucatan Indians. Now, what did we just go over? Not all the Israelites are quote unquote Jewish or Judaic. That's only the tribe of Judah, the tribe of Levi, right? But the rest of the Israelites were not, the same way. A lot of them just lived, without knowing how to read. They were just, they're just doing their thing. But only really the tribe of Judah and the tribe of Levi really knew things like that. Now, the tribe of Issachar, they also had to, because they had knowledge of the times and things of that sort. Different tribes were blessed with different things, right? The tribe of Zebulon, they sailed all across the Pacific, right? So different tribes did different things. So just because only like the Yucatan, or you're seeing like a lot of quote unquote Jewish connections with the Yucatan, or maybe in the Oaxaca Valley, that just means that the tribe of Judah has a presence there, right? And again, it would make sense why, a possible Messiah would be from Central America. Now let's read this. Sarmiento felt, however, there were certain characteristics of the Indians of Yucatan and New Spain which could not be explained by the Atlantis theory. He postulated that after the fall of Troy, uh, Ulysses sailed westward across the Atlantic and reached Yucatan. See, these people have connections to Rome, Greece, the Hebrews, the Hindus. They're just an amalgamation of all this stuff. Why? Because this stuff came from here. Right? For those of that land have Grecian bearing and Grecian dress of the nation of Ulysses. They have many Greek words and use Greek letters. I myself have seen many signs and proofs of this. They call God Theos, which is Greek. The tribe of Dan was in Greece, so I don't know really what that means. I don't know how you're saying, well, they are speaking Greek. How about the Greeks are speaking their language? In passing through there, I heard that these people used to preserve a ship's anchor as a venerated idol. They surely are of Greek origin, and from there they could have populated all the provinces of Mexico. Peru and neighboring provinces were Atlanteans. The published debate resumed in 1575 with the Augustine Fair. This person right here, let's skip down. Nevertheless, he could not decide where the Indians had come from. He thought they had certainly experienced some pre-Columbian contact with Christians, because some of the Yucatan tribes knew of the cross and the Trinity, and some of those in Cholula celebrated an idolatrous version of Easter. Bruh. Easter, like, now that stuff is that stuff comes from the Druids, believe it or not. The concept of Easter comes from the Druids. So they have some sort of a connection with the Druidic priesthood or the Levitic priesthood, the Celts, right? The Assyrians, right? Tribe of Issachar, the Assyrians, Celts, Druids. But was their original source? This person did not think they were descended from Hebrews. True, the Indians of Yucatan practiced circumcision in connection with religion, but that practice was not particular to Jews. Nor did he think word similarities such as Yucatan and Ectan. First of all, it was not called Yucatan. You guys named it Yucatan, so you can't say, "Oh, that sounds like Yachtan." You named it that. So what the hell? Anyway, let's go to this part, man, because we got a little bit more to read. Mulek landed in the land northward, which was the area of the heartland of the Jaredites, so around like northern Mexico. Sometime later, the Book of Mormon record does not say what year. Oh no shit, bro. But you're making up your own year because you're basing it off of those lands over there. A group of the descendants of Mulek went into the wilderness in the land southward and settled in a place they called Zarahemla. Zarahemla was located on the west bank of the river Zidon. A Mesoamerican document written in the K'iche Mayan language called The Title of the Lords of Tonto Nicapan appears to refer to the Mulekites as the location of their initial settlement along the Gulf of Mexico is consistent with what we see in both the Book of Mormon and Mesoamerica. If the Jaredites of the Book of Mormon are the same people as the Olmecs of Mesoamerica tradition, then the landing of the Mulekites would be along the Gulf of Mexico. If that is the case, then the following of the Lords of Tonto... Let me turn this down. Wait, that's not how I turn it down. Okay, whoops. Of Tonto-Nikipan may indeed be referring to the Mulekites. This document was written in 1554 AD and contains a brief history of the K'iche people and their legendary origins. They came from where the sun rises, descendants of Israel, and of the same language and the same customs. So that's an interesting drop right there. Now let's get into this real quick. Let me see it. There's the last thing I wanted to go into. Okay, so I'm gonna skim through this. Let me see where I wanted to go to. The Maya culture literally maintained supreme control over the territory for 2,300 years. That territory included what is now part or all of 7 countries: Mexico, Belize, Guatemala, El Salvador, Honduras, and including the northern tips of Nicaragua and Costa Rica. Phenomenally, during that long period of time, the Maya culture never extended beyond the isthmus of Tehuantepec. I'm sure it didn't, right? Maybe not by land, but definitely by sea. There are a few parts of the world where there is such a good fit between language and culture. A line drawn around the Maya-speaking people would contain all those remains and hieroglyphic texts assigned to the ancient Maya civilization. The ruins of Cholula, located in the state of Puebla, are non-Maya and include activities pertaining to both the Book of Mormon and post-Book of Mormon time periods. The ruins of Tula, a Toltec site in the state of Hidalgo, are non-Maya and are post-Book of Mormon. Let's skip down. Now this is important. Listen to what he says. Over the years, Latter-day Saints have been frustrated in trying to correlate anything Maya with anything Book of Mormon. The result has usually been, 1, to label everything Book of Mormon, or to totally ignore any archaeological site as being Book of Mormon related. Both approaches are wrong. When John Lloyd Stevens reported his archaeological findings in 1841, he emphasized the ruins of Copan, Palenque, and Zumal. All 3 are Maya ruins. All 3 have proven to be post-Book of Mormon. This dating does not mean that classic post-Book of Mormon sites were not built upon pre-classic Book of Mormon time period cities. So what he's saying, and he's going to get into it, I believe, but he's saying that these people, there was a certain group of people who were during the time period of the Book of Mormon, because their history sounds just like it, but they built on top of these previous Mayas, these previous quote-unquote Mayans. And that's what I told you guys in the last video. The Book of Mormon events took place in the area where the 10 tribes left their lands. The Motsah brought the Israelites back into those lands, because most of them left. Some of them returned, most of them left. Let me see. The 2 most productive sites in Maya territory during the middle pre-classic period were Izapa and this one, I ain't reading this. In northern Acropolis of Tikal was constructed around 600 BC. Altun Ha, located in Belize, dates to 500 BC. Ushaktun, I tried my absolute best, bro, and other sites in the northern Penton are in the area where the middle pre-classic is defined the best. Coe states that the middle pre-classic sees the establishment of Maya-speaking peasants everywhere. The flowering of Maya culture could have only taken place on this base. So you're saying that pretty much things start to get rebuilt during that time. right? So this person did good research because, he used critical thought. He didn't try to make everything Book of Mormon or nothing Book of Mormon, because some people say, oh, like everything happened in North America. Like, what are you talking about? Where's all the records then? Nephi had all the records, so they must just be situated somewhere, right? Clearly, the Nephites and the Lamanites during the 600 BC to 300 BC time period adopted the spoken language of the people who already lived in the highland of Guatemala. The spoken language of highland Guatemala was a derivative of the original language spoken by the early Olmec Jaredite culture. The written language, however, was preserved and handed down by Nephite royalty from generation to generation. These conclusions are in agreement with both the archaeological record and with the Book of Mormon. King Benjamin taught his children the language of his father so the people could read the records that had been preserved. And only him and, his posterity could read it, because they weren't speaking the same language that they were speaking when they got to these lands. Let me see. I'm trying to talk about the Yucatan, bro, the K'iche. And there's just so many things. Like, there's already over an hour long, as you can see, this video. This is interesting. Clearly, the golden age of the Nephites is not the same as the classic civilization of the Maya. See, it is not the same. This happened later. The classic civilization of the Maya was not very peaceful because, they were pretty wicked, so they are not going to have any peace. The Nephite golden age dates from the coming of Christ, 34 AD to the year 200 AD. The classic age for the Maya began at 200 AD. Now, who came after this time period? The Romans. The Romans, bro. The difference is in definition. Not literally here, not in Guatemala. I mean, and just around this time period after their golden age is when the Romans came, right? Or maybe before that, because I don't even know. This time period is like not a real, it's an estimate. The difference is in definition. The golden age of the Nephites had more to do with the nature of the people to live the commandments of God. The classic era of the Maya is recognized for the size and number of their buildings. They had no envies, no strifes, you know how it goes. Bro, am I missing something, man? No, hold up. Let me look in this book real quick, because I must have forgot the page. It was 130. It was 131. Here we go. The Popol Vuh is a Mesoamerican document that was written shortly after the Spanish conquest. The document was written by a Quiche Indian who learned how to read and write Spanish. It has also been called the Popol Vuh, Book of the Council, Book of the Community, the Sacred Book, or the National Book of the K'iche. The K'iche Indians live in the country of Guatemala and are a branch of the Maya race. At the time of the Spanish conquest, the Quiche nation was the most powerful and cultured of all those that occupied the region of Central America. And in 1524, Pedro de Alvarado, who was sent by Cortez, attacked the Quiche, caused them to surrender, and burned their capital city, Utatlan. Some of the Quiche nobility moved from Utatlan to the neighboring town. Oh my goodness, bro. Chichicastenango. Chichicastenango. I'm not saying that again. The Spaniards named this place that place. Today, the town is the favorite place among foreigners, especially on Sundays and Thursdays, which are the market days. The Popol Vuh was apparently written by one or more of the nobles of the K'iche from oral traditions. It appears to have been written originally in the K'iche tongue by using Latin letters. Let's move down. All of the American people, the Quiches of Guatemala, have left us the richest of mythological legacy. The description of the creation as given in the Popol Vuh is a kindergarten text when compared with the Book of Mormon. With the Popol Vuh and the Book of Mormon contain information on dogma, origins, history, and genealogy of the Native Americans. Both the Popol Vuh and the Book of Mormon were written originally by American natives and subsequently translated into the English and Spanish languages. Okay. The Annals of K'iche, Kalis, I don't know how to say that. I'm sorry. Written by the Indians of Guatemala. Let me see. Bro, I feel like there's something big that I'm forgetting. I feel like there's something I'm forgetting to read that was crazy. In addition to the native documents and writings of the Catholic fathers and other Spanish writers, the customs of the native Indians who live in the high mountains of Guatemala and Chiapas or in the villages of the Yucatan are fascinating to observe. Many of their customs that visitors still see today have changed very little from the customs as described by the 16th century chroniclers. If customs are still identifiable after 470 years in spite of massive changes in society that have taken place, we can assume that for the 1,000 to 1,500 years previous to the conquest, a relatively high degree of consistency remained. Apparently, the old adage is true that the more things change, the more they remain the same. No, it really is, because it seems like these were the Nephites, bro. At least one of the groups of the Nephites, the K'iche Maya. They are descendants of the Nephites. That's just what it seems to me. But that's all I have, bro. I'm really tired. It's literally midnight, so I'm a stop. I hope you guys enjoyed this series, and let me know if you have any questions. May peace be with you. Selah Kala.